iPhone 14 Pro Max versus Galaxy S23 Ultra. Many months later, well, 6 months with the Galaxy S23 Ultra now, and nearly 12 months. We already did the 1 year review for the iPhone 14 Pro Max, but I want to talk about how the two heavyweights in the game, what I feel about them now that I've had these phones for a significant amount of time. And I'm talking about in a direct comparison. I've already covered this for its 1 year. We haven't quite done a 6 months on the Galaxy. I might not do that one. We might just wait for the year on that one. But we're going to head to head here and talk about the longer term experience. And now my thoughts now that I've already covered these initially, but what I think now about them. We'll begin by talking about the price point. So every year, the iPhone typically costs me more, and this one was no different. There's no deals. There's no real big incentives. Besides, you could do the Apple trade-in, but the Samsung trade-in is instant. The Apple trade-in is not. As a matter of fact, I did it last year for the 14 Plus. They did not refund me the trade-in value for my phone for 3 months. I couldn't believe it. 3 months. So I'm not down with Apple's trade-in, especially when you do it online. But the Samsung device, they did a promotion. I got the 512 gig, promotion deal on this phone, and they knocked off several $100s with my trade-in immediately. When I traded in the S22 Ultra, I believe it was, I got like 800, 900 bucks off this phone. So yeah, S22 Ultra netted me a big return on investment, at least on a trade-in. I know Samsung's in this trading game where you still got to keep paying them every year to get the latest phone, but at least you're getting a big discount if you want to stay in the game of upgrading your phone. So from a price perspective, I always felt like the S23 Ultra has been the better pick value in terms of everything I'm getting. Plus I'm getting all them features and all that stuff and a massive storage upgrade for less money than my 256 gig iPhone 14 Pro Max. This is a 512 gig Galaxy S23 Ultra. And I did get in this custom red color with the matte edges. I just really like the matte edges. They're super clean and all that jazz. But yeah, definitely pretty custom looking right there. Whereas I got the space black iPhone 14 Pro Max over here. And I quite liked the edges, but the back still looks like a space gray phone. So I wish they would go fully like phantom black style like Samsung does. So months later, when it comes to the build quality, how do they feel? Which one feels better? And it's really like neither. Like we do have stainless steel, but the Samsung still has, aluminum that feels very sturdy. Everything about both these phones feels very premium. I will say one thing though, the Samsung is more comfortable to hold than the iPhone. So just because of the curved edge right here on the corner of the phone, you could see right there, it's a little bit curved right there. It just feels nicer in the hand. Now it's still awkward with its squared shape. I feel like it's really useful for the S Pen, but its shape is a little bit awkward by comparison to if you're not used to a squared phone. If you're used to a more rounded edge on a phone like this, it definitely feels a little bit awkward. But the iPhone right here, the 14 Pro Max, is also kind of clunky and not very comfortable. While we do have a rounded edge here, because there's no dip or curve near the border here of the device, it feels kind of sharp in the corner. Not like it's poking your hand or anything. It just feels just kind of uncomfortable. And then you add the extra weight to this phone and it weighs, quite a bit. So I would say the S23 Ultra being lighter and just definitely a little bit more, comfortable to hold is ergonomically probably the better phone here, even if it's got a more awkward square shape, which a lot of people do like. And I do like it for S Pen usage, but I don't like it for daily use. Both these phones to me are getting beat out by smaller, lighter phones every day, all day for everyday practicality. But when you're looking for the two heavyweights, the biggest of the biggest, I do think the Samsung feels a little bit, more ergonomic to hold. Now the actual looks and the design of the phones, you got the dynamic island up there. You got the camera on the back looking like a stovetop still since iPhone 11 Pro Max. And then you got the traffic light camera on the Galaxy S23 Ultra with these two right here. And basically it's a toss-up. Basically, which one do you like more? I think it's pretty even. It just comes down to what do you prefer? Personally, I do think the Samsung looks a little bit more modern now because Apple keeps the same design forever, but at the same time, not everybody's going to prefer the look of a Samsung phone either. They just like their Apple device. So, it's really a toss up. It's pretty close. And while I do think the iPhone is still a very premium feeling and looking device, I do like, where Samsung is taking their products, especially with these custom colors. It really definitely gives it a little bit of an edge when it comes to the color options, because you can pick your own custom color, or you can just stick with the base colors with the shiny edges if you want. Okay, guys, so let's talk about the displays. So we do have the dynamic AMOLED on the right, and we do have the Super Retina XDR OLED ProMotion display on the left. And basically what I can tell you about both of these phones is that they're both incredibly bright and vivid. Now, Samsung really wins out still in just looking more punchy and saturated. I'm not sure if you could see this. You probably can. It's just overly, punchy, colorful, until you go over here in the settings, scroll down to display, and then you go ahead and you put this into a natural format. Now, the natural format is even more toned down, I feel like, than the iPhone. Looks like we had a little crash because of the, with switching display modes. I feel like the natural mode still feels a little more toned down than the iPhone on the Samsung, but the Samsung just simply has more options. It has a more, I would say, full screen experience. Now, some people will probably like that the iPhone's, bezel right here looks a little bit nicer, as this kind of looks like a straight bar right here because it doesn't fully hit the edge. But if it did, you probably have too many accidental presses. The dynamic island up there just, I don't know, man. It just kind of sticks out like a sore thumb. It's just like, look at it. Bang. It's just right there. Whereas, the Galaxy, well, yes, bang, we do have the little punch hole, but it's kind of tiny by comparison. So I will say that the display experience, I think, is definitely superior on the Samsung. I will tell you, though, that the iPhone does have a very, very smooth ProMotion experience as well. But Samsung also has the great 120 hertz adaptive refresh as well on the motion smoothness side of things. So they're pretty much even when it comes to smooth feel, but the Samsung wins out in customizability as well as the vivid nature or the saturated nature of the panel. So if you are looking for, an all-around beast screen, you probably want the Samsung. If you want a really good iPhone screen, the best of the best iPhone screens, you'll want the iPhone 14 Pro Max. One area the iPhone does win technically is in the brightness, because it can hit 2000 nits versus 1750 on the right. However, keep in mind that in hot temperatures, a lot of times it'll dim pretty quickly, so you don't get to use it that often. But I did find that the Samsung was able to sustain that higher brightness a little bit longer. Also, leading over to talking about brightness, if you take a look at the extra brightness mode here, let's click this on. You do have the abilities to make this, in its full brightness all the time. Samsung unlocked that feature, I think it was like last year. They allow you to actually use its full brightness whenever the heck you want. You don't got to wait for sunlight. You can probably damage the, well, not damage, but lessen your battery capacity over time with that if you use it a lot, and drain its, current cycle. But at the same time, you have that option. So display wise, I gotta say, the Samsung is probably the better well-rounded screen here, but it's not like that the iPhone is just a bad screen or something. It's not. It's amazing, actually. Both of them are amazing, but the Samsung definitely, I think, has the edge 6 months later. So let's talk about the software. Now, the software on the Apple device is iOS, or widgets, home screen, grid of icons. Not much you can do, but you know what? Some people are okay with that. They said, look, bro, I want my updates. I want it smooth all the time. I don't got time to be customizing, playing around with apps. I'm not a child anymore. I grew up, and I'm not saying if you're younger and you're watching this channel, I'm not like coming at you. All I'm trying to say is that some people they find it childish, or they find it like something that's a distraction, a waste of time. That's just an opinion some people carry about, customizing a phone. They just want to use the phone and be on with their life, be on with their day. And if you're that person and you like polish, you'll love the iPhone. Now, there's people on the other side of the fence that say, look, I don't need nobody controlling me, telling me how I'm going to make my phone look. I paid full hard-earned money for this phone, and I don't care if they say that's child. It's not, bro. I have a personality, I want to make it my own, I want to customize my own way, then you want the Samsung phone. It's still king in that area, and you don't really have to worry about a bunch of malware and crap because they have their own Galaxy theme store here with a lot of safe themes you can download here. Of course, the Play Store offers a variety and abundance more, but you have different icons, different always on display modes. I mean, you can really get down to the core here of this phone and just change it to however the heck you want this phone to look. The customization is on another level for the Samsung phone. But here's the thing, a lot of people say, they try to act like they don't want the customization, so they don't want the Samsung phone. You don't need to use it because the One UI experience by itself is already pretty clean. And if you don't want to change anything, it's still a clean software experience. So that's kind of optional. You know, you have the feature if you need it, but you don't need it, then don't use it. Over here on wallpapers, you still get Google's color palettes and stuff like that. And then if you go down here, tons of advanced features featured with this phone. So like I say, if you want to go all out, the Samsung phone, man, it is the win. You got the S Pen, we'll talk about that later. But we just want very polished software, amazing app store, great applications that are updated frequently, and maybe some of the latest apps that come out. You'll probably get it here on the iPhone and you'll just love it. You know, especially with the ecosystem and other products, it just melds in with those products very well. Although Samsung is improving their ecosystem as well. Okay, so the S Pen. This is another thing we got to talk about. Now, this is the full S Pen experience. You can use this like to flip the camera. Unlike the Z Fold, I think you need like an S Pen Pro to do that. Over here, you can create notes. We already talked about this for several years. Live messages, AR doodling, translate. The PenUp community is also a pretty cool place where you can go ahead and draw and look at others' drawings, color. You can do a bunch of stuff here, live drawings. You have different challenges. So if you're really into art on your phone, or you just want kind of like a little art pad to play around with, there's no question the Samsung is your phone. You'll really love this. Now, I do want to mention though that Apple does have this new Freeform application in pretty much all iPhones. So this will be like your little creative outlet right here, which you could use over here. But you're going to be using your finger, and your finger, while this is still okay, you know, I would want an Apple Pencil with this. So I prefer Freeform for the, you know, for the iPad. So definitely I would say Samsung more in tune with, you know, the creativity side when it comes to the S Pen if you want to do drawings and stuff like that. However, quick jot, you know, the Freeform could work. Quick brainstorm of a couple of things, Freeform will work. But there's no denying that the Samsung's S Pen is a great tool if you need it, if you're going to use it. Now, some people are never going to use the S Pen, and if you know that you won't even touch this thing, you know, doesn't mean you don't have to get the S23 Ultra, but I wouldn't make it my deciding factor. It's definitely useful if you use stylus, but if you don't, it's not a big deal. It's not the deciding factor for me anymore. It used to be one of those things, but for me, the S Pen is not the deciding factor. It's kind of the cameras and other stuff. But you have that if you really want to take it to the next level of like drawing and writing on your phone. And again, seeing that this is Samsung, you could see, look at Air Commands, Air View, screen off memos. I mean, they have a whole like suite of software within the phone for a pen. Like, how many phones do that? Only Samsung phones, really. All right, leading on to performance here. Now, we've seen my speed test. The Samsung has beat the iPhone in actual real world usage. Not only doesn't get as warm, it had better graphics performance in the wildlife benchmark. Also has twice the RAM. So what essentially this means is that if you have a bunch of applications open, you know, this thing just holds things forever in the background. And if you like that, if you like multitasking, or you like split screening and doing things of that sort, you like flipping things around, you like using edge panels, you like doing stuff like this, you're really, really going to love the Samsung phone. This phone really does have the power to do all this stuff without ever breaking a sweat. It actually takes advantage of that processor. Now, the iPhone is just a pure technical beast. It's very fast. It wins in benchmarks, and everyday applications are just super quick to open and super smooth. So it just really leads to having almost a perfect experience when it comes to app launches and daily use on the iPhone. Now, for the Samsung phone, it's just really fast and very impressive over prior Samsung years, which have essentially led to some lags and some stutters and weird things that are annoying. Now, one area that Samsung could still improve, though, on the S23 Ultra into the S24 Ultra next year is going to be the animations. Not really the speed, just the smooth look. Sometimes they just look a little weird. They don't look quite as fast and polished as what I see on the iPhone experience. So that's just one area I would say Apple is still winning. Just these smooth looking animations, they just look better when you come out of the iPhone. But Samsung is definitely catching up here, and it looks the best it's ever looked on the S23 Ultra. So let's take it on to the battery life of these two phones. Now, the iPhone has been not my favorite with the 14 Pro Max. The S23 Ultra, on the other hand, has been a big improvement over its prior phone, the S22 Ultra. And so I have to say, in actual usage, I'm getting better experience on the S23 Ultra. Some people have argued that's not the case. I don't know why you weren't getting great battery if you had an S23 Ultra, but for me, when actually using it, it lasts longer than the iPhone 14 Pro Max. About 30 minutes to an hour or so better screen time in my experience. However, the iPhone is still the king in standby. Samsung still has this drain where it drains a little when it's not even being used. The iPhone, on the other hand, totally different story. So if you are looking for a better experience, with standby, the iPhone is the king. Whereas Samsung is going to be the king when it comes to just kind of like actual usage. Battery life is bigger on the battery size actually bigger on the Samsung. So do keep that in mind. That might play into it. But on the whole, I got to say that either way you go, you're getting a solid all-day phone. It's just the iPhone, when high brightness, when using 4K camera, it drains faster than I would like, faster than the 13 Pro Max. And if you want faster charging, the Samsung still was the quicker charging phone, but neither of these really impressed me there. I think both of them should offer faster charging, closer to some of those Asian Chinese phones like the OnePlus and stuff like that. Those phones are just ridiculous fast charging. Ports wise too, Lightning is becoming really boring nowadays with USB-C on basically everything, including Apple's iPad Pro and some of their other products. So definitely USB-C is better for the Samsung. We don't even got to go there. All right, so the cameras. I'm not going to go into the actual software in this video. We've done that numerous times before. I actually took some camera samples. I'm going to show you them here right now. And we're going to talk about the results, and because it's the results that matter. So we looked at this one earlier. Now, when watching this or looking at these on the screen, the Samsung always looks more vivid because you're looking at it on a very vivid OLED panel. However, let me tell you the truth of these two phones here. What I see is that the Samsung phone on the selfie front looks a little softer, a little smoother on the skin. We get a little bit more detail, sometimes unrealistic detail, on the iPhone. In addition, I will tell you that the iPhone experience is still more of a natural camera-like looking photo. I find the Samsung to be a little bit more sharpened after you take a photo. So it just kind of looks a little bit sharpened. I kind of like that though for social media posting, because a lot of times when you're in your filters, Instagram or something, you'll definitely want to just sharpen the photo up. So Samsung kind of already does that for you. But it kind of lends to a little bit of an artificial look, I think, when it comes to its actual results. So let me go on to look at some other side-by-sides. So you can see right here, looking at the rocks, just the Samsung a little cooler looking here. Like not cooler as in like it's cool, like cooler in the temperature. The iPhone a little bit on the warmer side. So there's a little bit of differences here, but it's nothing super major between these phones, and I think it just comes down to the zoom. So with the iPhone, you can zoom in like 15 times, whereas with the Samsung, it just blows that phone out of the water. So I mean, look at the difference in detail. The iPhone looks like a noisy mess, and the Samsung with its 100 times zoom just crushing the iPhone. So if you like zoom, the Samsung just absolutely crushes this phone. And what I like about the Samsung camera experience is that they're giving you so many features without needing to download applications. Let's take a look at the details here. So you can see pretty close. I mean, really, it's minuscule. It's a very tiny difference. But what I like about the Samsung camera experience is, look at this, expert raw. You got slow motion, food modes, director view, single take, night modes, photos modes, pro video, pro photo. I mean, it's all here And it's all in the camera settings themselves. You don't need to download extra apps. I actually had to download an extra app here on the iPhone to get some of these cool, get some of these cool features in here, like the ability to change all this stuff a little bit more professional like. So the Samsung to me is the better camera when it comes to features. It's debatable on the actual results. I think both of them are pretty much even. The video may be slightly more smooth on the iPhone, but you can do 8K, which is a higher quality on the Samsung. And so the audio performance is a winner months later on the Samsung. The reason why this phone is actually louder in my experience comes down to this right here. This Dolby Atmos mode, when turned on, it enhances the volume. It makes it louder, it sounds better. And because of that, it just one-ups the iPhone here as well. Now, the iPhone is pretty loud, don't get me wrong. It's up there with that Samsung in the loud factor. But the Samsung is just as loud, and then you turn on Dolby Atmos and it just boosts it up. So the iPhone loses here to me as well. In the audio department, after several months of use, I found the Samsung to be a little bit better sounding and louder with Dolby Atmos enabled. Without it enabled, I would say the iPhone wins though. Now, many months later, I do like the iPhone still when it comes to the Face ID. I just like it more. I think it's a more convenient unlocking experience because it's your face. It just feels like it's more reliable even in dark conditions. The Samsung has Face Unlock, but you have to rely on this for security. And while I think in-display wise, the in-display fingerprint sensor on the S23 Ultra is the best in the business, there is times when I have missed it. It's very rare, but there's still times when I missed it. So I do like the iPhone for its Face ID. I think it's a little more comfortable. It's a little bit better. It's just a little bit of a better unlocking experience for convenience. So many months later with the phone call quality, I would say neither really dropped any calls. Neither gave me an issue. The Samsung speakers were a little bit louder on the speakerphone call. And I did find that the iPhone dropped more bars in rural areas or in like suburban, way out in the suburbs. I felt like I had better strength on the Samsung, and I felt like the 5G, the higher quality mobile speeds, like faster, internet performance, held on longer on the Samsung versus the iPhone, which would sometimes drop down into 4G LTE a little bit too frequently for me versus the Samsung, which would stay on 5G a little bit often. That was mostly when I was out in the burbs, away from the city and stuff like that. So just wanted to mention that. So let me wrap up my final thoughts here many months later, with these two phones being the two heavyweights, the most I've spent on phones, main phones this year. And that is that these phones from a total package perspective, I think the Samsung wins. I just think it offers more with better promotional deals on sale. Now, it's really, the thing is that objectively it might offer more, but it doesn't mean that people would want to buy that over the iPhone. And I think it comes down to the fact that Apple just has the stronger brand still in terms of branding, especially here in the US. I'm specifically referring to the US. That's where I'm based out of. This is what, I experience when I look around. I see everybody and their brother using an iPhone. So definitely the iPhone, I still think, has that sticky brand and has the stores, it has the store experience, and it has the customer service down pat. It's just a better customer service experience. And you have the AirPods, the Mac, the iPad. Yeah, you have the Galaxy Tab, but you got the Windows computer, but it's Microsoft. It's not their full-blown computer. And they're using Android and Google software along with Samsung software. So it's just not as cohesive, not as sticky, not as smooth feeling as the Apple ecosystem. And for that reason, people are just used to it. I don't think they're going to switch just because you have an objectively better piece of hardware. But if we are being honest here, objectively, this many months later, I got to say the Samsung had the better actual hardware. Doesn't mean it's the better phone for everybody. And both of these are neck and neck. And I think either way you go, you're just going to have great options this year. And if you get the iPhone 15 Pro Max, that would probably beat this phone or at least match this phone in hardware. So stay tuned, be subscribed for that full comparison of the 15 Pro Max or Ultra, whatever they want to call it, versus the S23 Ultra. We'll be locking them head to head here in a couple months. So stay tuned. I'll catch you on the next one. Nick here. Be sure to be well and peace. By the way, if you had one of these phones, drop your comments below. See you later.